And you are very welcome. This is Fintan Dunn for Irish First Mothers. I'm the media liaison for the group, and I'll be helping today. Before we begin, can I refer you to irishfirstmothers.com, where you'll get links to First Mothers Facebook, Twitter pages, and where you'll find other testimonies and more on the workings of this genocide inquiry. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel to stay posted about new testimony. With me is Cathy McMahon, founder of Irish First Mothers.
Thank you, Fintan. What we're going to do in our first two sessions today and tomorrow is just to concentrate on the testimony of our first two living witnesses.
Great. And so what's the schedule for today?
Our first living witness is Mary, which is not her real name. Mary is in her early 50s and is a member of Irish First Mothers. Like me, she was in Ardwira, Good Shepard Convent, Dunboyne, and she's with us here today. Thanks, Mary. So what year were you in Dunboyne?
It was early 1983.
Yeah, I was there in 74. So that's what, 74. 9 years before you?
Yeah. How many were in the home when you were there, Cathy?
Do you know, I don't know, but there must have been at least 20, 30.
It's either 28 or 38 when I was there.
And was there babies there when you were there?
No.
No, there was no babies there when I was there either.
That's why I can't understand why they call them mother and baby homes.
Well, you see, they weren't really called mother and baby homes back then, were they?
No, they were unmarried mothers.
Yeah, they were unmarried mothers' homes.
And then, where did you have your child?
In Holler Street.
In Holler Street. Okay, it's a path that Cathy trod before you then.
Yeah, 9 years before.
Cathy talks about a moment in the journal article about her story where a nurse in the hospital ended up just walking away with her new baby. Was there a similar moment for you?
No, unfortunately, it was part of the agreement that giving up the baby for adoption was that they were to come from Sligo, and they were to come and collect the baby before I left the hospital. But that never happened, so I had to walk away and leave her behind me.
Right. Yeah, that must have been very difficult.
It was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, and who made that agreement with you?
The social worker.
Right.
You know, my biggest fear was that she would be on her own.
Yeah.
In anywhere, and that includes, you know, I wanted her to go straight to her adoptive parents, but don't forget, all these decisions were made while I was still pregnant and didn't understand what was going to happen when the baby was born.
Yeah.
When I went to Dunboyne, I remember being in the car and I had absolutely no intention of having the baby adopted. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I knew that was one thing I didn't want to do, that I wasn't going to do. And I just found that as soon as you arrived, the pecking started.
Yeah.
And the social workers were brought in and the pecking was just constant.
And did you actually have social workers in Dunboyne at the time?
Yeah. A lady, it was a nun, she used to come from Sligo.
Right. And was that some adoption agency in Sligo?
Yeah, it was St. Attractus Adoption Agency.
Yeah.
On Charles Street in Sligo, in the middle of the town.
Right. And had you made contact with them before you entered Dunboyne, or was that after?
No, they came to me.
Right.
They came to me. I don't know how she knew about me or how the system worked. I don't know how they knew I was there or how I got there or who sent me there or anything. I just know that I just arrived there.
How far pregnant were you when you went to Dunboyne?
I must have been about 5.5, 6 months, but you wouldn't have known that I was pregnant at all because it was so tiny.
Were you put into a room on your own the first night, Mary?
No, I was actually I shared a room with another girl who actually wasn't very friendly.
Right.
And so it was just the two of us in the room, and we were way up at the top of the house, way up nearly in the sky.
Were you distressed already when you arrived in Dunboyne? What had been the circumstances leading up to that?
before that, life at home wasn't very good, obviously, because there was this problem. And I think in one way, I think I might have felt glad to get away. I don't know whether I did or not, but I know that I was so distressed I actually wet the bed that night.
You keep saying there that you don't know, and is that because you've actually got chunks of memory missing, or what are you referring to there?
That part of it, definitely, I would definitely say that they're missing. I do remember going to the home. I do remember going in that door and being taken into the left-hand side and given tea. And then I remember going into the building where the unmarried mothers were, and I knew I was very, very scared, very nervous.
Had there been a conversation in the home prior to you going to Dunboyne that, you're going to Dunboyne? Had it been explicit, or how had it been done?
That part I actually don't remember. I actually don't remember. I just remember being in the car and arriving there.
Did you get your bearings?
Eventually I did, but I was very, very homesick. Constantly homesick. I cried a lot. I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home.
And was there friendliness towards you?
No, not really. Because at the start when I went there, because I used to love to cook.
Yeah.
And as anybody that's been there knows, that you actually work for your keep. You don't, you're not sitting about all day. You're actually working. So I used to work in the kitchen. And one of the girls that was in the kitchen, I don't think she liked me very much, and I was very, very quiet and very, very shy, and she was kind of bullying me a wee bit. So they took me out of the kitchen and put me into the convent to work over there, which was horrendous.
What were you doing over there?
I had to clean up after the nun. Well, there was one part of it. I was cleaning up after their breakfast and that sort of stuff. And there was one nun, she insisted on making porridge every day. And I, to this day, can't touch porridge.
Right.
I can't look at it. I can't, and I just have it's like a phobia about porridge.
Yeah.
And I just can't deal with porridge. It seems really trivial, but it's not. It's a massive phobia. And I remember then after a while, making friends with one of the girls, and we used to kind of hang out together then, and that made it a wee bit easier. And we used to talk about things, because nobody ever talked about, what was happening to your body.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I had no sex education at all. And I remember specifically one day, because there was always iron tablets on the table.
Yeah.
I had to take the iron tablet in the morning, and I remember saying to her, "No, my poo is black," and I was really distressed over it because I didn't know why. And she was able to tell me that that's what it was from the iron tablets.
Yeah.
And so we kind of hung out together, and she was a bit of a wild child, and we just got on really well. We kept in touch for quite a long time after that.
Did you have any formal meeting with anyone in authority in the place when you sort of had settled in after your first night? Did anyone come and say, "Here's why you're here, here's what's happening"? How was that handled, or was it just all happening?
I remember when I went into the room on the right-hand side, and they were talking, but they were talking about me, but they weren't talking to me. And it was basically, I was kind of, as I say, very quiet, very shy, and didn't really take on board what was happening. I think I just anything for an easy life, so I went with the flow. I think that's how I felt, and it was only when I actually got into the home and was mixing with the other girls, and the topic of conversation was, "Are you keeping your baby, or are you having it adopted?" And that was kind of the first initiation I had of adoption. And there were so many girls pecked at, as I call it, that they were giving up their babies. They had gone in saying no, they weren't, and now they were.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first. But no one talked to me about what was going to happen labour-wise, or what was going to happen, and by the time they had finished with me, talking me down and saying, no, you can't keep the child because of this and because of that, because of the other, at the end of it, I was like, oh, sure, I don't even want to look after it, because I was that convinced that it wasn't going to change my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only after the baby was born, and the nurse said to me, do you want to take the baby up? And I says, yeah, sure, why not? And it was only then, when they put the baby in my arms, that I knew that I was in serious trouble, that I was in major trouble, and that I had to fight really hard to try and not let this happen.
Right.
Which I did, but it didn't work.
In what way did you try and assert yourself?
Well, first of all, I rang. The baby was born on the Wednesday, and I didn't ring anyone until the Friday because I didn't want anyone to know that she arrived. And I thought the longer I left it, the longer I could have with her.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I did ring home, then it was just the people came to take me home, and there was just no question that she was coming with me. There was just no question of it. And then, as I said earlier, the ambulance was supposed to come and take her before I would leave, but it turned out that I had to walk away and leave her. And because there was a big front when my family found out that I was expecting a baby, I was sent first of all to confession to a priest that was a complete pervert, and wanted to know, did I enjoy the sexual act as he was moving in and out of my bits.
Yeah.
And I was so shocked, but I was that badly, my upbringing wouldn't have been great, and my mum, bless her, had a really hard time, gave us a hard time, therefore we never answered her back, therefore we never answered anybody back. We never stood up for ourselves, and this priest was asking me questions like, oh my God, it was just horrific. And then I was sent then to a convent in the north, to another nun, and then I was sent to various different people, and I never understood why I was being sent to these people. And then when the decision was made that I was to go to Dunboyne, I was packed up and brought and left. And I say that's when my mind was, I suppose I was very easily influenced as well as a young girl. But the social worker would come and would tell me about the great life that my baby would have if I gave her up for adoption, and the best option was to give her up for adoption. And how would your family feel about the people that's talking, and what would the neighbours say? And it was a lot to do with the neighbours, and what would they say, and what would they think, and how can I go to the golf club, and how can I do this and do that. And as the time went on in Dunboyne, my family would write me horrible letters, and again pecking at me that you can't take this baby home, this baby's not welcome, you don't expect me to take a piece of him into this house, and different language that I had never heard before.
Yeah.
And then the social worker at the same time was pecking and tell me about the great family that she was going to get, and that they would pick a family that was similar to me and similar likes and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when I got to Holler Street, when I went into labour, I went into Holler Street, and the first question I was asked after, I'm just going to be blunt now, they shoved a pipe up my arse and made me an enema. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And again, the stuff was black, and it was the nurse said to me, why is that black? And I was like, well, Jesus, if you don't know. But I was able to tell her because of the girl that I'd met. And then it went on, the labour went on, and I was so alone. I was on my own completely. And the nurses, they weren't that nice. And I never cried. I never screamed out. I never said a word except for please don't check me again. Now, I was that naive that I actually thought when they were checking me that they were checking my vagina. I didn't know, sorry, that they were checking my back passage. I didn't know anything that they were doing. And eventually all I said was, please don't check me again, because the pain was terrible. And then she was born, and kind of she was looking at me, and I was as I thought she was looking at me, and I was looking at her, and I was thinking, I haven't got any feelings for you. And then when they put the baby into my arms, that's when I knew then there was trouble. And of course I had no visitors because I didn't ring home, but when visit time came, they used to close the curtains so nobody would see me. And that was terrible. And then, as I say, when it was time to go, I had to go back into the play act of my family was saying to the taxi driver, oh, her baby's not well, it has to stay in hospital. And taxi driver knew bloody rightly.
Yeah.
And then they brought me back to Dunboyne. Why they did that, I have no idea. But all I could hear was babies in my head crying. And I actually had to ring my friend and say to her, look, these babies are crying in my head. And then I was worried the fact that they hadn't picked her up, so I was ringing the social worker as well. And I just cried, and my family left, and I had to stay there that night. And then they came and picked me up the next day and drove me home.
Wow.
And we got in the front door, and my family said, well, we go and play golf. And it was when they left, I just started bawling, crying, and I cried. I cried myself to sleep every night. I just wasn't doing well. And I was home about a week, and I was bleeding. And I said to my eldest sister, I said, and this is, again, how naive I was, I think my kidney's just fallen out. Because what came out was like a kidney or a liver, you know, and that you would see in the butchers. And she says, no, she says, I think that's just, the blood, your period finishing or whatever. And as the night went on, it just got worse and worse. And I was actually passing footballs of blood. And it actually busted the stitches, and the doctor was called. He was there about 4 or 5 times and gave me injections, and I had to raise my legs up so as the blood would flow. And then the ambulance came, and they stopped outside the doctor's, which was forever. And the disco, our local disco, the people were just coming out of it, and of course they were all wondering who's in the ambulance. You could hear them talking. And we were due to go to the General Hospital in Letterkenny, but because it was so bad, they had to take me into Galvin. And they had to give me 8 pints of blood, and they almost lost me a few times. And then the next morning, and you could hear the women all saying, what happened to her? What's happened to her? And this big matron nurse, she came out and she says, where's your baby? Where's your baby? And kept screaming at me, and I just said she's in a foster home in Sligo. And then they were a wee bit more, but by that stage there was a local girl working there, and sure everybody knew then that the baby had been born and the baby wasn't here.
That's an incredible sequence of events for you, like medically besides psychologically. That's totally overwhelming to have gone through that. How long had you been with your own child? Exactly how long had you spent before that parting?
5.5 days. And I just loved her to bits.
Say you did. Very sorry that happened to you. Should never have happened to you. Very sorry they did that to you.
No. But that was, like it was said at the time that there was afterbirth left in the womb, and that's why it happened. But it just went on then from that. The bullying went on from that. There was a different social worker then, and basically basically, I phoned him one day and I said to him, I want to keep my baby. I don't want to give my baby up. I don't think I can live without her. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you can get a place of your own, then we can talk about it. And I did. I got a place of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't practical, but it doesn't matter. It was still like, I got it. And of course, it wasn't allowed to be in the town or anything, so it was quite a bit away. And when he came and he started with the pecking again, I said to him, I got a place, and my family nearly died. And then he said to me a big story about her coming up the foil in a yacht, and her really wealthy and well-to-do, and all just bully tactics to make me change my mind. And then my mum went out in such a bad humour, and as I said before, we were all very scared of her growing up. That was my mind changed. I said, okay, I'll do it, and that's how I ended up giving her away.
Mm-hmm.
Just complete bully tactics.
Well, it was relentless, wasn't it?
It was relentless. It really was relentless. And me being the way I was so quiet, so shy, and like I wouldn't talk to a goose. And it was just constant. And then it was never spoken about again.
Now, you say you agreed. How long after the birth did you sort of give in on the issue finally?
Oh, it was a good 6 to 8 months, if not longer.
Right.
It was a good long time. Now, I knew that she was with her family, and then that was another added pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That how could you take her away from them now they've bonded with her, and you know, I suppose it was tough on them too because they were on tender hooks. Will she or won't she? But I remember going to Sligo to sign the papers, and it was another nun that took me. I was a young girl, and I was bawling my eyes out. And do you know what she said? She turned around and says, "What are you crying for?" I was like, Jesus, you know. And then it was never talked about again. It wasn't mentioned. It was never asked how you are. And I used to just cry myself to sleep every night. And I remember 5 years later being in America with the girl that I had met in Dunboyne and another girl who had actually been there after us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really upset. I was crying, and they were saying to me, God, you should really be over this by now. You know, you should really be getting to grips with this by now. But I was still crying 5 years later.
When did you
just as bad as it was the first day.
Mm-hmm. When did you actually sign papers? How long after did you go in front of a solicitor to actually do?
About the eight months.
Mm-hmm. When you did that,
it was a long time.
Yeah. Was any advice given to you then about, like, were you sure this was really what you wanted to do, etc., etc.? Was there anything sort of formal about it, or was it just who arranged the solicitor?
I think it was the nuns that arranged it with the town clerk, would have been.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question was asked, are you doing this of your own free will? But I mean, you know, you had a gun to your back at that stage. No, you said yes, you were.
Yeah.
You know, but you weren't, like.
And did you pay for that solicitor? Who paid for the solicitor? Was that ever brought up in terms of who brought you there?
I think it was the nuns who paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
It was the nuns from St. Attractus Adoption Agency.
Right, well, they had you broken at that point, I suppose.
Ah, yeah, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah. I was well broke.
If it was still having that much of an emotional impact on you 5 years afterwards, then, you know, maybe that was the same 10 and 15 and 20. Like, what do you think were the ongoing emotional consequences of the entire thing?
All my life. All her life. You know, simple wee things like, do you have kids? Well, what do you say? Yes, I do. No, I don't. And it's, you know, every time anything like that come up, my whole life was affected by it. You know, if I met someone new, you had to tell the story, and you know, it just affected my whole life.
And you didn't have children subsequently, you're saying then?
No, I didn't know.
Do you?
And I felt like I was being disloyal to her by going, you know, that I needed her to know how much I cared about her. You know, so it was this decision that I had made that I wouldn't go ahead and have more family, because I just felt that she would feel that I was being disloyal to her.
That's lovely, isn't it, in a way? But it's also,
the
really reality
good.
of it underneath it all is that, you know, that really was actually blocking you from maybe having your own family, really.
Yeah. And then from the whole experience, I mean, I never had a day's peace with, you know, monthly periods and stuff like that there. I just never had any peace. I always had very bad health with it.
Was there any follow-up from the difficulties that you had after the birth?
Well, you had your 6 weeks check-up in the doctor's surgery, in the local doctors. And I remember being in the doctor's surgery, and this woman turned around and says, "Wait here, baby." And those words just ring out, you know, in front of everybody. The place was packed. And, but no, there was no follow-up to the hospital or anything like that.
And this year again, that this is happening in, what year?
That's in 83.
Hard to believe, isn't it, that in 83 we were still like that you encountered those attitudes. Do you feel that that the care that you got when you were giving birth was insufficient? Because
Absolutely.
There has to be a suspicion that to a certain extent it was been taken out on you, you know.
Well, I'll tell you this, when I was in labour, as I said before, very quiet, very shy and very private, and I don't think I'd even seen my own bits, let alone anybody else seeing them. And when I said to them that I had to push, and I looked and there was nobody there, and then then they came back and they put my legs into the stirrupy things and said, "Put your chin down and close your eyes and push," and I did what they told me to do, because you do put your trust in them. And I looked up, when I opened my eyes, there was about 40 young students looking at my bed and were there for the birth. And that has affected me something terrible, you know, because they didn't ask permission or nothing like that. And I know that when I was being checked to see how far dilated, I know that now, I didn't know it at the time, but how far dilated it was and it was students that were, and yes, they all have to learn, but I felt personally, even at the time, that we were used as guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Because we were unmarried and unsupported.
Yeah. And undeserving of proper human care. Dehumanization of you is what you experienced, really.
Well, the fact that when visitors come into the ward and they close the curtains is a clear sign. Yeah. It wasn't for my protection.
How do you feel
I'm
about
shaken.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Have you had much chance to talk about this down the years?
No. I started counselling about, must be 4 years ago now, pardon me, and one thing or another, the first guy, he had to leave, and the second girl, she left as well. She actually got pregnant, and she was married, she was from Galway, so she moved back to Galway, so then there was no resources for anyone else. So it was kind of left up in the air, and But apart from that, I mean, I attend a psychiatrist, which is absolutely no good because every time you go, you get a different person. I have a lady who comes here once every 4 or 5 weeks to make sure I'm okay, that I don't have any suicidal tendencies, and I'm on quite a lot of medication to keep me calm. And it's just something that is going to hurt me until I'm dead. And that is the bottom line.
Well, look, you know, to be honest, you haven't had the medical care that you actually need, I'm afraid.
No.
The insufficiencies that you are describing in counselling have really, you shouldn't have been exposed to those insufficiencies. You need very specialised and you need very empathetic counselling.
Yeah. These people were supposed to be for people that have been institutionalised like us. No, these people were supposed to be professional. Mm-hmm. But it just happened that the first guy had to leave because his dad wasn't well, and the second lady, I think she had very bad postnatal depression, so she had to leave. She did send me a lovely Christmas card, which I really appreciated.
You know, I hope that part of it is that the group who are supporting each other in Irish First Mothers, you're able to speak with people who can really understand, as Kathy can. I mean, Kathy was through that same being cordoned off, if I'm right, Kathy, when she was in Hollis Street 9 years earlier.
Yeah, 1974, exact same thing that you've described there is exactly what I went through. You know, it's very difficult for me hearing that it was still going on 10 years later, and then we know that it was still going on 20 years later.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
One of the things that sticks out in my mind now, and it's not my story to tell, but one of the wee girls she was only 13 or 14, and she was so homesick. She was so very homesick. I did everything I could to help her, you know, and I would buy her sweets, even if she was eating sweets, it was something. But she just couldn't eat, and I would say, you know, like hers probably was a legal battle, and they couldn't let her come any closer to home. And she was still there when I left, but I used to ring her, and her babies both died. They were both special needs, and they both died. Twins. She
had twins. Wow. 13 years of age.
13.
And did you have any information about the background to that and the background to her pregnancy?
No. I had no information to that. No.
Yeah, when I was there was a 12-year-old, you know, so
awful,
horrendous,
awful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, there's, you know, for me, I think I had bully me written on my forehead, because I did get picked on at the start until I made this friend who was a girl she was younger than me, but she was very streetwise.
Yeah.
Whereas I wouldn't have been streetwise at all. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you a funny wee story. It was Easter time. Easter time is a really rotten time of the year for me. It was Easter time, and myself and this girl went down to the village, and we bought some Easter eggs, and we were walking back up towards the place, and this car of young fellas stopped, and they asked directions to Maynooth. Well, when we both turned around, I mean, I was big, but she was humongous. Mm-hmm. Well, they couldn't stop, and we couldn't stop. Everybody just bust out laughing, because they were stopping for, here's two young ones.
Yeah.
And turned around, and here we were already fixed. And that's just, but there was other funny bits as well, you know, like some of the girls went out one night for a few drinks, and of course the gates were locked at 10 o'clock, and they had to climb over them big gates.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, it was horrendous.
Yeah. What do you think of what's been offered to you by way of trying to address what was done to you?
I don't see any response at all. I mean, I haven't had any, I had to attend a psychiatrist, and even that, when I go there, you didn't get the same person, and I went there specifically for this reason. It was my GP that recommended me, and I went, and the first time I went in, and it was the time that the Magdalene laundries had broke, and I broke, and I just went in, and I whined like a banshee, and I don't even know where it came from. And then I seen him a couple of times, and then he left, like everybody seems to bloody leave. And then this girl came in it was a communal room, waiting room, and she came in and she had a foreign accent, and she said, "Who here is for a psychiatric evaluation?" And I was like, I did put my hand up, because I didn't know what to say or do. And then when she went out, I says to the woman beside me, I says, "Did that just happen?" She says, "Don't worry, we've all got our troubles." And I said, Jesus, right? So I did. I went in, and I gave out to her and said, you've just made things worse. And then she started saying things like, "Oh, maybe your baby resents you for," and I ended up, I just got up and walked out. And then they came looking for me a couple of years later, and I just said no because of what had happened. But that she actually got in trouble for it. Right. And now that's what I say, they come here every 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And they don't really, I don't know, she talks more about herself than she does about anything else.
Right.
So no, I don't feel that there's any help at all.
Have you applied for to speak to the commission?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I applied to speak to the commission, and they sent me an application form, and I haven't heard anything since. So I rang and spoke to them, and she said, "Oh yes, we've got your application." I just said, "Well, I thought I might have got a letter of acknowledgement." And no, she said, "You'll be called, but it could be the summertime before you call, because we've over 100 cases." And I thought, for your 1 point whatever million, you should be getting through them a wee bit quicker than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I also applied only recently to the Freedom of Information for my records, and from Dunboyne. She said it'll take 3 weeks, and they should have that now. And I also rang the hospital that I had been taken to in an emergency situation, and they said that my records had been destroyed in 2014, which I thought was kind of weird. Yes, so that I've just been, and then I was advised then by the founder of Irish First Mothers to apply to the Freedom of Information.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to see what comes back from that, and then ask questions as to why they weren't recorded or weren't kept.
Yeah.
Which, it just seems rare to me that they were discarded just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The big question: did you and have you reconnected with that child of yours?
Yes, I have. I have been very, very lucky in one sense that when her parents were very, very good, and they told her from day one that she was adopted, that she has another mother, and she decided to write me a letter and ask me would I be her pen pal when she was 9. And I was advised by the social worker to basically keep it short. Don't make her think that you're living in a castle in the sky. Keep it plain. So the letters that would come and thrown would be, she would ask me, do I have stairs in my house? I like stairs. I like to climb the stairs. And I would say yes, I have. I would just basically answer her letter.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she became 25, she asked, could we meet? And we did. And she's lovely.
Yeah.
She's really lovely, but I'm just not her mother. She has her mum, she has her dad, she has her sister.
Mm-hmm.
She has her partner and her 2 kids. And I would never have been invited to birthday parties, christenings, any occasion, She never ever talks about it. Never asks any questions. Very rarely she would ask questions, and it's as if we just get on with it.
Yeah.
Like when they would come up here, I would try and spoil them as much as I can, taking them out for meals and stuff like that, and it's just basically like friends, and it's not I have great affection for her, but she doesn't really have it for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, yeah. And has a relationship at that level continued to this day?
No. Recently, they were here recently, actually last summer, it's a long time ago, and I sent her a good few texts saying, is everything okay, how are you? Sent them parcels at Christmas, and I got nothing. And eventually I texted her boyfriend, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I just was worried that there was no communication at all. And basically she texted to say, she said, we're fine, how are you, hope you had a nice Christmas. And basically I would prefer if you would wait for me to get in contact with you. And it kind of just felt like a don't call me, I'll call you kind of a situation. And it kind of just hurt all over again.
Yeah.
Obviously she doesn't want me to run after her. Yeah, I'll just have to sit on the sideline again and wait to see what will happen.
Yeah.
What we hope will happen is that we'll all get a bit more human about all of this, and that people will realise that these bonds, they mean so much on either side of that bond potentially, to all parties involved, and that maybe in time, with a change in attitude here, that will come about.
Yeah.
Yeah. The attitude I see is, oh, for God's sake, it was 35 years ago. Get over it.
Yeah.
And it's just not like that.
Well, I think that's something that you've helped to bring out here.
I mean, I remember when I was in the hospital, I was cut, and I felt it. I felt the cut, and I can still feel the cut. And it was horrendous. For a young girl to look up and see, I would say 40 students looking at me.
Yeah.
And that has left a terrible impact on me.
And not knowing yourself what was happening.
Mm.
Well, if they had said, look, we're going to ask some students to come in, I probably would have said fine, because I was so conditioned to say okay.
Yeah.
I was so conditioned to say, not to say no, that I probably would have said fine, but they didn't. They didn't. And the shock that I got when I opened my eyes and there's me spread eagle, and me so shy, it was just horrendous. And like they're saying that no physical harm. Well, you know what? I mean, there's not a day goes past that I don't look, and I've got a belly full of stretch marks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Permanent scars, permanent reminders.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
What do you deserve from us in recompense for what was done? What kind of justice? What kind of truth? What kind of redress?
Well, I just, I find it that's a hard one, because I suppose the biggest one for me would be recognition that I haven't done anything wrong, that I didn't deserve what I got. I fell in love, and how come, he's gone off in his world and done his own thing and, abandoned me. And, even to go down the street, I meet his sisters, and, every time you meet them, that's the thought that's going through their head, and it's the thought that's going through my head. People don't forget easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to say to that, actually.
It sounds like that you deserve proper medical care. Really effective, targeted, well-resourced, highly professional, and you're not getting this. You're not getting what you need to be able to close and move on, even at this age.
Yeah, even at this age, it's still very much there.
Mm-hmm.
very much there.
I'm going to just thank you for sharing that story with us. We've learned so much from speaking with you, and we've heard someone really lead others on, I hope, to speak out and share in the same way.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. I think the more we speak out, the more mothers come forward, you know?
Yeah.
It's taken, it takes a few pioneers, and sometimes it takes some of the most deeply affected people who are actually going to do it. And I think you have been deeply affected. I'm astonished.
Oh, I have.
Astonished. I mean, I thought I knew, and I'm supporting this campaign for quite a while. I never realised it could do that to someone and do that to your entire life.
Yeah, the rest of my life. And it will be the rest of my life. And especially after the text that I got, that just broke me all over again. You know, and you know, looking back and things, and looking even, like she invited me to her home, and I remember one day one of her friends coming in, and it was the way the friend looked at me. I thought, dear God, she doesn't approve of me, and I'm like, but I'm a little older and a little stronger, not much stronger, but I'm a little stronger, and I have, through the grip, and I will say this very strongly, I find that through the grip, I am able to feel free, and I have come to the realisation that no, I'm never going to get over this. I now just have to learn to live with it.
And you have the support from us all.
Yeah, and we are transcending this, not just those of the mothers who are leading this, but we are slowly coming to terms with the reality of what was done. And thank you very much for helping the process, which is going to bring some sunshine into this for everyone, I think. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
And I just hope it helps.
Very emotional testimony from Mary there. Kathy?
I'd like to say a special thanks, Mary, for that. And I'm so sorry that you were put through so much.
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy will be back with our second witness tomorrow, Thursday the 20th of April. You can click subscribe to get notified of that, and I hope you can take the time to join us. But until then, for Irish First Mothers, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting.
We walk the road now, the road of darkness. We've walked that road till the very end. We could not see before the sunset. We could not see before the dawn. The feel of strength now in your father's arms, with no fear or no alarm. I've come here to unlock your dreams, dispel the darkness, draw the light so near. Don't close heaven's way, don't close it at all. Don't close heaven's way, don't close it at all. The angels guide